Hey, Bowie Manning here. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Celtics Daily, our new daily program here on CLNS Media covering the team. And there's a lot to talk about, a lot going on in the Celtics world as the All-Star break approaches here, trade deadline in the rearview mirror at this point. And we're here to talk about all the happenings today and over the last week or two here with Keith Smith from Spotrac. Does a great job with all the cap roster analysis of the NBA, and certainly a lot of action going on over the last week or two here, Keith, both in Boston and around the league.
Yeah, it was for a trade deadline that took a real long time to get started. It went crazy over the last couple of days, so much so that our normal plan on Spotrac is I write up a trade recap of each trade and just kind of not a winners and losers piece or even grades, but just here's what happened, here's the financial impact, short and long term, here's what it's going to look like on the floor. So many trades happened in the last 3 days. We're like, just scrap that. We're gonna do a league wide look at things instead, just because it was so crazy.
So I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts on the Celtics deadline, where this thing's going for them roster wise, because it is going to be interesting how they get back into contention once Jayson Tatum returns. And obviously, we still have a wide window there where it could be tomorrow, it could be next year. Who knows when it's going to happen? And that's where he left it today. We heard from him a little bit at practice, and here's what he had to say after practicing for the first time yesterday since this Achilles tear with the main Celtics. He participated in portions of practice, the team said yesterday, and here's what he had to say when he spoke to us today.
I'm feeling good. It was good to be a part of practice yesterday with the main G League guys. Today is 39 weeks, so it's been a long journey. And it's just like the progression of rehab. It was the next step. Doesn't mean that I'm coming back or I'm not. It's just we're just following the plan. So it's just another step.
How close do you feel to returning at this point, if you were going to put a percentage on it?
I'm not going. I don't know. I don't know percentage. I just know I feel a little bit better every day, and I just try to focus on that.
We were talking recently about how maybe a little hesitant because of what these guys have accomplished, and maybe trying to not be disruptive when you come back. If you come back, what was behind that? Are you still feeling that way?
I think just over 39 weeks, you have a lot of time on your hand. You think about a lot of things, and you're just hyper aware of what's going on. And I think it would just stem from that. Obviously, I know what I bring to the table and bring to the team. But I'm also aware that these guys have been playing extremely well. And, not to say that I would come and mess it up or anything like that. It was just kind of being vulnerable, I guess, for a moment and talking from that perspective.
So what do you make of the comments there, Keith?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I'm not surprised. He was a little cagey with his answers, especially when you asked him to put a percentage on it. He's like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
He almost did.
Yeah, you could. I think he wanted to, but I think it was, I think, for Jayson Tatum to come back and say, I'm 90% there, or I'm going to be back on March 1st or something like that. Those just put numbers and dates against it. And if something happens, all it's going to be is, well, you said you were 90%. How long does it take to get 10% more? Or you said March 1st and it's now March 2nd. You didn't play. What's the deal? And all the kind of things that can go with that. So I think I'm not surprised he was there. I thought it was really cool that he, the way he answered, I think it was John Corrales' question about when he said maybe I could mess things up when he was on that podcast recently. And I think it was good that he said, hey, it was just a moment of vulnerability. And I am sure he has been through an absolute emotional roller coaster over the last. It also is funny. He knew it was 39 weeks, like that he had that number ready in his mind. I think he's just been through a lot where it was, you're on top of the world trying to defend a title. Then you're wondering, is my career over? Then it's all right, how do we get back? I'm sure there's been moments where it's like, I feel great. Then there's probably other days where it's like, I feel awful. Things are not moving at the pace I want. So then none of this was overly surprising. I just think I'm going to take it as an overall good sign that we got the update that he went to Maine and then that didn't go to Maine, but practiced with
Maine came to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is also like that kind of tells you some the importance level of wanting to get that done. And I would also say the other piece is that the Celtics even let him talk to the media today, right? Because injured players don't have to talk to the media, and they could have very easily had said no, but here they are. They've let people see him working out now. They've publicized that he worked out with Maine, and now let him talk to the media. I think those are all positive things towards a potential return.
Yeah, and I like the commentary on what was the biggest point of uncertainty for us over the last 2 weeks here is where he's at and reevaluating his return. He obviously shared what he did on the podcast there about potentially disrupting things and not wanting to get in the way in that sense, which was interesting for me to hear. I don't think I've ever heard a player talk about their return in that regard. From what I can remember, it was a unique statement from him. And you wondered when you heard that, and then obviously Chris Haynes' report that followed, if he was actually legitimately thinking about shutting this thing down. And especially the way Haynes worded that report, like it was almost worded like he's about to shut it down and, they're going to kick this thing to next year. And this, even though he didn't say a lot in the press conference today, along with the practice yesterday, made me feel like, okay, like, I don't know if it was ever off the rails in terms of coming back this year and they were thinking about shutting this thing down, but it at least showed me that they're still on track and still thinking about returning. There's not a ton of time left. I think there's 29 games left this season. And I don't think you'll bring him back and just throw him into a playoff series. Who knows? So I think we're getting pretty close to decision time here. And I did ask Brad on Friday, like, is there an X date? Is there a deadline where you do say, all right, we're just going to kick this next year? And he said, no, like when he's 100%, he's just going to go. And how do you feel about it? And how have you felt about the potential that he would return this year all along? Because it feels like there's a camp that's like, take all the time in the world, don't rush this thing at all, be careful. And then there's a camp that's obviously excited to see him add to what this team's already done this year.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting where Brad was asked about Jason's comments about what if I, mess things up and all that. And I thought it was interesting where he said, look, if I need to tell him every day, we're better with you, I'll tell him every day. Like, I thought that was really kind of like that. Just, I think also gives the sense of these guys have been together for forever in the NBA, right? Like Tatum's been there Brad's been there the entire time. Tatum's been on the team. So clearly there's a pretty strong relationship there. As far as Tatum coming back, we first started hearing hints at the end of the summertime of he's going to try to play this year. Like that's his goal, is to play this year. I'll be honest, at first I was like, that's insanity. Like there's no way this guy is not. If he was 35 years old, then I'd be like, all right, maybe, right? How many years does he have left? Anyway, if he's already kind of like when Elton Brand came back, it was like, all right, Elton Brand's a ground-bound player anyway. Like I don't know what's going to change for him with this. And, then I could have got it, but I was like, that just sounds crazy. But then the more that came out about he had the surgery immediately, the next day, he had a kind of a, I don't want to call it a pioneering surgery because I don't know that much, but like had a surgery that is not common. It sounds like his tear was in a place where it was, hey, this is better for a quicker return than some of the other things that happen and the like and all that stuff. And the more you started to put it together, I kind of formed in my head, as long as he is 100%, the team is 100%, the coaching staff, the front office, if everybody's all right, we're good, then you come back. Like there's not a lot of reason to, well, let's just wait. Yeah, if the team was 20-52 with 10 games left, I would say maybe you let him do, like I always go back to him after Paul George broke his leg. He came back at the end of what was a miserable Pacers season just to kind of knock the rust off, get it done. Now the return is done. It's over with. I've played in a game. And when we go into the summertime, it's just a normal summer for me. I'm not always building towards this big return to the court. Then I could have understood it. I don't think you're going to bring him back with a couple days left in the season and say, hey, you ready? Now jump into a playoff game. That would seem to be crazy to me that that's the way you would go. If you can get him back with a handful of games left, 7, 8 games, 10 games, ideally left in the season, let him kind of play those out to knock the rust off. I've long since said whatever you get out of Jayson Tatum this year is better than whatever they've been getting out of their 8th, 9th, 10th man anyway. Like, it's even if it's not all-star, all-NBA level Jayson Tatum. But I'm going to caveat all that with, if he's not 100% ready, the medical staff has any doubts, coaching staff, front office, anybody has any doubts in this process, you just say no. You just wait. You wait until people are ready. Everybody's scared of a re-injury. These Achilles tears do not have a very high re-injury rate. Like, it just, they just don't. So that part, I think we're past that part of it now. It's just when it's on everybody agreeing, yeah, he's ready to go.
Yeah, doctor we've talked to here said 4 to 6 months. Once you get to that, the re-injury rate drops pretty drastically, and he's about to reach 9 months in this thing. And if that's the time frame he's coming back at, 9 to 10 months, it's pretty incredible. I think most people think with this thing a year plus. Obviously, Durant missed the time he did, and everyone holds that as the standard to some degree, even though
also
a funky time.
Yeah, let's also remember Kevin Durant went to a team that was not very good, and other guys were hurt too, so there was no reason to come back. Now, the Nets clearly signed him with the idea of you may not play all year, but and this is also too where I always like to say every player is different. Like, I remember, do you remember? This was years ago. It was in his first stint with the Celtics. Al Horford got a concussion. It missed a lot of time, and people were like, somebody else that year, maybe it was Marcus Smart, somebody else that year had a concussion, came back after like 1 or 2 games. It was like, why is Horford still out? Everybody's different. Everybody reacts to these things differently. So that's where, for me, it's like we can't just put it all in the same box and say everybody's out for the year and that's how it goes. It is going to be different. If Tatum's ready, then he's ready. There's no reason to hold him just to hold him back. I guess that's my ultimate, takeaway here is if you're just holding him because you don't want to play him yet. I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So another interesting piece that we got to mention here too, I think that's important is Shams in his report on Sunday about moving on to 5-on-5 said that Tatum wants to return when he's as close to Tatum as possible. And I do find that interesting because of the disruptiveness thing we've discussed here, because you do wonder, like, if he's on a minutes limit when he comes back, or he's coming off the bench, or whatever limitation there might be on his role initially, he's going to have to change the way he plays to some degree, I would think. Like, is he going to be the guy with the ball in his hands all the time? Is he going to be leading their offense possession after possession? You wouldn't think so in that scenario. So it might make more sense confidence-wise for him to come back when he's at a position to actually lead this team. And that's when I think you start to think of next season, because you have training camp and preseason and all the rest. But if he does come back, obviously, as you mentioned, even a limited version of Tatum could help this team immensely. It would just take some adjustment. And he discussed it a little bit in his comments today, just high IQ players, we figure it out, like that'll all come into place. But when it comes to like the disruptiveness thing that we've discussed, how does he fit in this year to this team, to what they've done? I think the thing everyone thinks about is Jalen's season and what he's accomplished this year and how he's led things and the bigger role he's taken on and how they'll both have to balance that again. And they've done it so much. We've talked about it, Keith, since the day they started playing together at this point, those guys making it work. So this is just the latest round of that. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just are like, boom, and it works again. At the same time, you can imagine there being some figuring out things there, because Brown has flourished this year in a bigger role, and that's the role Tatum has typically played in here. So is there going to be some of that going on here, or do you expect it to be pretty seamless?
Yeah, I think it'll be bumpy at first, not out of any negative way or anybody being selfish or anything. It's just Jayson Tatum is not a go spot up in the corner, and this is not bringing Sam Hauser back to the team.
Yeah.
Right. If you're bringing Sam Hauser back, that's really okay, go and you just do your thing. When you bring a guy like Jayson Tatum back, it's going to be a little bit more where you've got to kind of play it out a little bit here. And I do think there's going to be, I don't know how much Jaylen Brown needs to give up, but I think guys like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, maybe some of the bigs, you may not get as many shots, right? It may not come your way quite as often because you're not bringing Jayson Tatum back to take 2 shots a night, right? You're bringing him back to to be some level of Jayson Tatum. Yeah, sure. If he wants to wait until he thinks he can be one of the top 5 players in the league again, well, then we're probably talking about start fresh next season and start that way. But I kind of think it's going to be more of a come back. This will be where it really falls on Joe Mazzulla, right? To really manage the rotation and figure it out. I maybe you see Jayson Tatum off the bench a couple times, but I do think he'll go back into a starting role. If for no other reason, it's a complete mindset change to come off the bench. You have to warm up, then sit for a while. I don't think people realize you sit for basically about 15 or 20 minutes before then you come back in. You got to be able to come in and go. Like Peyton Pritchard has the perfect mindset for it.
He's done a great job with it.
Big time. Yeah. Especially, with his change here in the last few games. And that's where I'll go to with the moves they made at the trade deadline. It really has changed things now. Now not that you should rush Jayson Tatum back, because again, nobody should be thinking that, but you need Tatum back more now than you did maybe a couple weeks ago because you lost an on-ball scorer, playmaker, shooter in Anthony Simons. They didn't, as much as Pritchard moves to the bench, then you got to replace Pritchard's production in the starting group. So you get Tatum back in there. I think that can be good. And I think there's a lot of ways where Joe Mazzulla can say, all right, hey, we've had real good success with Jaylen Brown and players X, Y, and Z. We'll still run with that. But Tatum and Vučević, you guys are going to become the second unit guys. Like whether start, come off the bench, but you're going to be out there with the second unit. We've seen Tatum for his entire career be really good when he's out there with bench players. It's been really one of the more successful lineups. But yeah, I think as long as everybody's reasonable and isn't like, here come Jayson Tatum's not scoring 30 points per game and, putting up near triple-double type stats and those kind of things, then it should be fine. It's, as much as I love what Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh and Josh Minot when he was on the team gave the Celtics, I kind of think even a reduced version of Jayson Tatum is going to give us a little bit more than what those guys got.
For sure. And there was something to disrupt before the deadline when this team was just rolling and looking amazing. And it's only 2 games, but since they put this new look team together, it's been a little clunkier, and there definitely is a spot in that starting lineup that they have to figure out at this point now that Pritchard's moved to the bench, and you can imagine Tatum sliding right into that. We will talk about the deadline and what the Celtics did here, but first, want to let the people know about Prize Picks, and the big game is come and gone, but still a lot of great sports action going on right now, so shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting as basketball season rolls on here. So don't miss a chance to get started with America's #1 sports picks app. So a lot of new stuff going on over there, but still the same game. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports: basketball, baseball coming up, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, sports, and more. You got early payouts now. So if one of your players gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. You got a community tab now, social feeds where you can share your prize picks with your friends, copy lineups from winners with a single click, copy lineups you like, or use them as inspiration for your own picks. All of that and more going on Prize Picks right now. I like the stacks feature. You want to go more on Jaylen Brown's points, 3-pointers, and assists. That can be your team. So join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports picks app. That's Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So let's go back to the trade deadline conversation here with Keith Smith. I didn't love what this team did initially here, and I'm willing to be patient. I'm willing to see it through. They've been pretty adamant in their need for a big man, and I get it, right? Because when you look at what Neemias Queta did to start this year and Luka Garza, the surge he went on after that month or so that he sat, you still wonder if it's sustainable, especially in a playoff setting. Those are guys who just haven't played a lot of NBA basketball in their careers, and they've done an incredible job to begin the year. But if one of them gets hurt or if one of them comes down to earth a little bit, you are in some trouble there. So I get the thinking. I also understand Simons. Are you going to be able to keep him? Is he going to be a guy who even plays a ton in the playoffs, especially if Tatum does come back? So there was some urgency to make that move too. But the backdrop of all of it, Keith, obviously, is that they saved a lot of money in the move and then they end up sliding below the tax. So you do sit there after and wonder, all right, did they trade for Vučević because they love him and they think he's going to help them? Or did they make that trade because it set them up to get below the tax line? And obviously, I think we've heard debate on both those things, both those motives to this point. But when you do that, you do sit here and wonder, like, was this just a money move for this team? And are they actually a better team after it?
Yeah, I don't think the Vooch move was just about tax savings and trying to get there. I think what happened after clearly was, right? You're
Yep.
not moving out Tillman, Minot, and Boucher without that. I kind of always thought Chris Boucher was going to go. Just signing never worked out, right? He's never really a rotation guy. Minot had his moments, and Xavier Tillman will always remember him fondly for his contribution to the NBA Finals.
The corner three.
But it's been it hasn't been a whole lot since then. That's shortcutting how much I know he meant to guys in the locker room and all those kind of things, and that's why he'll be on teams for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years because he's a really good locker room guy, works really hard, and stays ready. But yeah, I didn't love it either because I was at the point where Keita's been really good, and I was not a big Keita believer coming in to the season, especially not as a starting center. I was like, this is where they're going. Good luck. Like I just, his profile prior had been nice in stints, but a lot of fouls, a lot of silly stuff, just not really working out, at times. And then, so I was always kind of questionable, but he won me over. He played great. He's been a top half of the league starting center this season. He's played that well. And then you get Garza behind him, but he's also played really well. Way better than I think anybody other than maybe the Garza family thought he could. Like he's been
his dad,
good.
big advocate on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you're right. We should all want that kind of love from our family and support and belief in everything we do. So they've been really good. That said, yeah, you need probably one more guy. You saw it the other night. Keita got in foul trouble. Garza got in foul, and then Vooch also got. But or I guess it was the other afternoon against the Knicks. But those things are going to happen. So I just didn't like creating the hole in the backcourt. Now, if they believe, all right, by putting Pritchard back into a bench role, we can solve that to a degree. I know we're going to get into it here in a minute. I think one of those 3 open roster spots is eventually going to have to go to a guard of some sort to, really kind of make sure they're covered there. Again, if there's foul trouble or somebody rolls an ankle or something like that. But if they also are thinking, yeah, hey, we're going to get Tatum back and Simon's role was going to reduce greatly, then okay, I don't mind it. The other 3 moves, yeah, fine. I think what's getting missed is there's a lot of screaming and yelling about they're just cheap. This new ownership group is cheap and blah, blah, blah. The old ownership group would have greenlighted the same thing. And I'm going to take everybody at face value when they say there was no mandate, right? Nobody said you have to do this. I think what happened was the front office, so Brad Stevens, Mike Zarin, Dave Lewin, Buddy Scott, that whole crew looked at it and said, hey, I think we can do it. I think we can get under. We're going to have to do some really, putting it together with, Scotch tape and bubble gum here at the very back end of the roster till we can really fill it out. But we're going to figure it out here. We think we can do that. And then ownership was like, then let's do it. Because let's clear this up, does not reset the repeater tax by itself. But if they're out of the tax next year, and I think they may be, and I think they can do that while re-signing Vooch and using a chunk of the non-tax mid-level, I think there's a chance that can be pulled off. If you can do that, you're in pretty good shape then moving forward because now you're out. One thing I will trust is, because we just saw it, and I'm going to believe the guy who is a lifelong Celtics fan and said he knows what it means to own the Celtics is going to say, all right, all that money you saved me the last couple of years, now, and really, quite frankly, made me, because now instead of paying the tax, I'm getting tax payments in. That money
Yeah.
goes back into the team when we're ready to pay the tax again. And that probably will be in a couple of seasons. So I think for me, it was one of those things where there's actual basketball reasons to do this. And let's face it, Brad said it himself. And this was really Brad being very candid of Minot, Tillman, and Boucher weren't playing. They weren't part of the
Yep.
rotation anymore. So you did not give up key rotation guys here. Yeah, if they had said, we just had to trade Peyton Pritchard to get out of the
Hauser.
tax.
Yeah.
If you dumped Hauser, which was only suggested 9 billion times since last summer, then that's a problem, right? Because those are useful guys who actually help you night to night. Again, Minot, Boucher, Tillman, great guys. I know the Celtics loved what they brought to the team, but they weren't playing minutes. They weren't helping you on the floor directly. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of screaming and yelling about something that I ultimately think was probably a pretty smart move.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has a big problem with the back end stuff. The Minot thing's a little disappointing because he did look like a borderline revelation at the start of the year when he was starting, and then fades, and now obviously off the team. But other guys have stepped up in that spot, like Gonzalez and Walsh, who make you feel he's Shireman lately.
Yeah.
Revelation in his own right has been great.
Bobby, I think getting Gonzalez and Shireman and Garza to play with that energy every night that Minot was giving them early in, because that's what Minot was all about, right? It was just kind of throw them into the game and mix it up, right? Go crazy, run hard, crash the boards, do all your thing. They're getting that from guys who, let's face it, had Garza. We'll see what that looks like long term, but Gonzalez and Shireman have a long term future in Boston. And I think it was, hey, I think there was part of it too was just go out there and play free. Right. You don't have to be looking over your shoulder and wondering like, all right, I screwed up a couple rotations and I'm going to go out and the veterans are going to play for me the rest of the way. Like, yeah, I think that's part of it too.
So let's focus it squarely on Vučević here, who first game, awesome stuff. Love the passing, offensive rebounding impact in that Miami game. They didn't have it figured out at all, but they still came back down 20 and win that game. Impressive stuff. The next game against New York, really clunky. Knicks just lit them up. Who knows if that was just them shooting awful and the Knicks played a great game, or, if it's them still trying to figure everything out here. What does he bring to this team specifically at this point? Obviously, he was a focal point in Orlando, and, you got to see him up close there a lot in Chicago. Now, obviously, in a different phase of his career, and feels like he could be impactful with less attention on him. But he's also 35, and we've heard a million times over the defensive issues that he has and some of the weaknesses in his game. I'm also curious what you think of their ability to retain him beyond this year, because obviously he's been a $20 million year guy. Is he a minimum guy after this? Is he in that mid-level range? Like, how likely is it that he's not just part of this team, but, a couple teams to come into the future here?
Yeah, I think with Vooch, he's really kind of a good combination of Queta and Garza. He gives you the floor spacing that you get from Garza, but historically, even at a higher level, gives you the rebounding that you get with Queta. Not on the offensive glass, but defensively, Vooch is a terrific.
And they've needed that.
Yeah, and consistently has been for years a great defensive rebounder. And then you get some of the facilitation stuff, which Kate is okay at it, Garza's okay at it, but I think they missed between Horford and Porzingis and some of the other bigs who have been through town, just a big you can run more stuff with. Yeah, at the top of the key or at the elbow and do things. And we, like you said, you saw in the Miami game, he had a really nice passing day where he's picking guys out left and right. As far as keeping them long term, so for the Celtics next season, they're gonna be the roster is surprisingly full. I know that might seem crazy to some people, but they have 8 players on guaranteed contracts. Then you have guys like Queta, clearly going to be back. Jordan Walsh, clearly going to be back. Amari Williams, they signed him with the intention of bringing him back. So now we're up to 11. You have the draft pick. They generally make and keep their first round pick. So let's put that in. That's 12. So that's only 3 roster spots to fill. So where they're sitting right now, they're about 18 million under the luxury tax. And I think what you're going to see the Celtics do is That's enough. With 3 roster spots, you can fill with they generally fill to 14. Let's start there, right? So really, let's call it 2 roster spots early. You could use the full non-taxpayer MLE. That's about 15 million bucks, still under the tax. Then Vuč, he's not going to be a $20 million guy. It's not million a year guy. It's not going to be a minimum guy. But if you could get him at 10 to 12 million, all right, now you're about probably going to be 8-9 million into the tax. But just like they did this year, you figure that out as the season goes. You can be in the tax at the beginning of the year. It's all about being under at the end of the season. And it's really the trade deadline because that's your last chance to get off money. And that's what I think the Celtics will do. I think they will go into the tax and they'll say, all right, it is what it is. We're a tax team now, but we have avenues to get out of this if we need to. And that's where they'll go. So I think there's a good chance Vuč sticks around, just like I thought there's a good chance Simon sticks around. I think Simons was going to stay at something in the 15 million-ish range next year. Wasn't going to make 27 like you made this year. So I think whatever you're going to do with Simons, you apply that to Vuč, but you knock it down a little because he's a little older, plays a position where you do have a little bit of depth, and you just kind of move it forward, and that'll be what it'll look like. And then, of course, they're always active if a trade comes up as well.
I'm so curious. So let's discuss Simons a little before we wrap this up here, because he goes to Chicago. He's had a few nice games. I think 2 games he reached 20 out of the 3 he's played with the Bulls now. He's starting, getting a lot of shots up. So happy for him. Great player to cover this year. Love the honesty. Love the sacrifice he showed here. And I think just handled everything great, and they loved it. And Jalen's heaped praise on him. And he was just a nice part of this team. And the dynamic he brought off the bench, too, the 39 against Miami. And his last game in a Celtics uniform was like 27-29 against the Bucks 2 weeks ago. So it was a bummer to see him go. I think in a couple of games here you've watched and you've been like, ooh, like, would he have helped them in this spot? And then obviously you're wondering, could you have been part of this team into the future? How much do you think they'll miss him this year? And I am a little curious because I think Bill Simmons tossed it out there. He might have just been like chatting, but he will be a free agent this summer. They do have that mid-level. Is there any way in the world he would potentially come back?
I thought his Simon's Instagram post, I think it was, where he said it was an honor to wear green or whatever he said, something like that.
He seemed to like it here.
Yeah, I think he really liked it. I think he liked playing in a place where it means a lot to play well and to win. I think he clearly sees, like, if you come in and play hard, play well. This was the best defense he's ever played in his life. And I can tell you, I watched Anthony Simons play in high school here in the Orlando area. There wasn't a whole lot of interest on that end of the floor. But that was also because he could get 40 whenever he wanted in high school. And didn't really need to play a lot of defense.
Such an impressive player. He looks like Dame out there.
He's just a pure shooter scorer. Like, really just has that. He won a handful of games for the Celtics this season by shooting them back into games or taking over the offense. So yeah, if you told me all the Celtics do next summer is re-sign Vuč, bring Simons back on the mid-level, and add a player in the draft, and plus Tatum and whatever he is, great, let's go. That's a good, deep, solid team. And to clear it up, because people have asked, which I'm sure you've been asked as well, well, he can't come back because they traded him for a year. He didn't get waived. If he got waived by the Bulls, that would be a whole other thing. But he didn't, and his contract expires. So when your contract expires, you can go right back to a team. So yeah, I think I wouldn't surprise me if that's how it goes. It also, I wouldn't count on that being how it goes either. I mean, that would be kind of a rare situation, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's, the way this all played out eventually, is that, we see him back in Boston. Cause I think he really did find a really good fit here.
Yeah, and we'll see just how much they miss him down the stretch. We'll see how much Vučević helps this team as they try to figure out their lineups and stuff. It feels like there's a lot on the fly here over the last 29 that they're still trying to figure out.
Especially with the back end of the roster. I hope people are ready to – you better have a roster sheet up when we come back from the All-Star break, because there's going to be guys – because here's the big thing. They only have 12 guys on standard contracts right now.
So I'll ask you that.
Yeah.
Like, are they just gonna sign Shoga and Harper? Is that the most
We'll
likely thing here?
see.
Is there a
So
buyout guy?
so here's the challenge, right? And I don't want to bore everybody to tears with this, deep dive into the CBA. But a guy like Shulga, signing him to a prorated contract because he was a draft pick of the Celtics, right? They drafted him, right? I have
Yeah,
that
he was
right?
like
Yeah. Yeah.
57th or something.
He would count at the actual rookie minimum. That maybe happens, but that'll be down the line.
Yeah.
If that happens, because he would actually count prorated rookie minimum. Anybody else you sign is going to count at the veteran minimum amount. What we're going to see basically as soon as the team is back from the All-Star break, they're going to do a couple guys on 10-day contracts. That'll get them to the roster minimums. And we're going to see them play games. There's going to be a lot of I joked around with a couple members of the front office and said, hope you guys have on your calendars, like, remember, this is day 12 of 14 that we can be under 14 players. And because of what the rules are is you can be under 14 players on standard contracts for 14 days at a time or up to 28 total days in a season. So you're going to see 10-day contracts coming in. Then eventually when everything times out and lines out, you're going to see them sign 3 guys because they always go into the playoffs with a full roster. You'll see 3 guys sign 2 rest of the season contracts, maybe even contracts where it's rest of this season and next season tagged on. They generally like to do that. That's what they did with Amari Williams. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of new faces. You guys are going to be meeting somebody new at practice at least every 10 days. I
don't mind that.
Here coming up. Yeah. Yeah. Get
We'll
you through
probably
kind of the
overreact
dog
a little
days
bit.
of the season.
Yeah. Whoa, it's whoever. I remember him. Yeah.
I don't know
that
that'll be Joe Johnson quite being dug out to.
No,
to
that
do
was
another run
something
with
that
the
year.
team. But yeah, but it'll be in what they may do is they may look at a bunch of guys in the G League and say, hey, let's reward a couple of our G League guys who played really hard and
They
worked
love
hard
doing
all
that.
season for us with a call up and
Yeah.
get them. They have really good synergy going on with Maine. That's a good way too to kind of you build that relationship with players and with agents of, hey, they will take care of you there. And why do players want to do that? It's 10 days in the NBA, counts as a year of service in the NBA. It's all good stuff for them for, if they think, hey, I might be on the borderline of, eventually tripping a pension or getting a bigger minimum contract if I can play my way on a roster. All that stuff matters as far as picking up years of service.
So last thing I'll ask you, I know you're a Celtics guy and you followed the season closely. This has been one of my favorites to cover, and it's quickly becoming my favorite. Obviously, they've exceeded expectations to this point, but they've also played a fun style. I think a lot of the contributors on the team have been great to watch too. Some of the new faces like Garza and Minot early, and I love Walsh breaking through. Like, there's just been a lot of fun little stuff like that going on. Keita, outstanding season. Great to watch what he's done this year. How much have you enjoyed watching this team this year, and how real could this be? Like, are they legitimately an East Finals team? Obviously Tatum's return is going to be a big swing factor in that, but is the success they've had with the group that they do have right now real in your eyes to the point where they could be in the mix to contend for the conference?
Yeah, to the first part of your questions there, I've loved this season. This reminds me a little bit of that. I think it was 07-08, Jayson Tatum's rookie year, where
18.
I'm sorry, yeah, 07-08. Jeez, I went back way too far. 17-18, right? Gordon Hayward breaks his leg opening night. Kyrie Irving goes down a few months later for the season. Everybody has kind of written the team off, and everybody who was watching them day to day and covering them was like, I think that's a mistake. This team's actually still pretty good. There's still a lot of guys who can do some stuff here. And they made that run all the way to get, if it wasn't for the Rockets, I think that same year having an even worse shooting game in game 7, everybody would be talking about that Celtics team and how badly just, if only a couple more 3-pointers had fallen, they would have gone to the finals. That's just, where it was. So yeah, I'm very loving this team, really enjoying it. It's been fun because it's just so unexpected. Jaylen Brown's rise this year to a whole different level Jaylen Brown has always been really, really good and an all-star and a borderline all-NBA guy this year. There's no doubt about that. And the fact that, it's not, it's very insulting to say doing it by himself, but I will say doing it without his basically career-long co-star out there.
Yeah.
Like, that's been so cool to watching these guys step up. Are they real? Yeah, I think so. I like, that's kind of a lot more about the Eastern Conference, which isn't so great. The Pistons, the NBA is always it's going to be, I'll believe in you when you do it kind of league. Like, show me. They haven't won a playoff series yet, so I need to see it. The Knicks, the Cavs, they fall short every year in the playoffs. Maybe this is the year they break through. Cleveland or Toronto, Orlando, like, those teams are good, but they're not great. So I don't see any reason why it can't be the Celtics, especially if they can get Tatum come back and just give them solid production. I do think they can make a real run this year, because I just think they've kind of get everything you need. And when it comes down to it, you do still have a whole bunch of guys who've been there and done it, right? And they know what it takes to win those big games. And last, I'll say, I'm glad finally, other than the people who every loss is, the sky has fallen and it's the end of the world, people are finally giving Joe Mazzulla his due. I think he's been a really good coach since he took over into that role, which everybody gives him such a bunch of crap from that first season. And like, he found out like weeks before everything started, like, you're the coach now. Yeah, days. Yeah. Yeah. Good luck, man. Like, we got faith in you, figure it out. And, just brutal. So I think him being there, and then his next year, he loses a bunch of his assistants and everything else. I think he's done a really great job. And I think this year, more often than not, he has pulled the right levers, whether it's pulling guys in and out of the rotation and staying with guys. Like Jordan Walsh, that's owed a lot to the coaching staff, his development. Because by this point, a lot of other teams would have been like, we're writing him off, second round pick this deep into his career, not going to happen. And the Celtics just kept sticking with him. And obviously, the most credit goes to Jordan Walsh there for, really stepping into his opportunity owning it. But yeah, I think Mazzulla's done a wonderful job this year. This has been, yeah, you're right. I mean, this is starting to be way up there, because anytime it's unexpected, right, it becomes that much more fun.
Yeah, no, last couple of years they had the expectations, and you were kind of blowing through the regular season. Whenever they lost, it was the end of the world. It's a little more fun when the wins are surprising and unexpected, and you have a lot of fun with that, rather than saying they got to win every game, and when they don't, it's a disaster. He's Keith Smith. Great coverage of the league, the cap, roster moves, all the rest over at Spotrac.com, which we all use routinely, especially this time of year. So go check that out. And of course, on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Great catching up with you, Keith. Of course, a former Celtic blogger colleague as well. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon again here on Celtics Daily.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will discuss a little bit more this Tatum interview today, and I want to play some more from it, as we heard from him earlier this afternoon at the Auerbach Center, and some of the stuff he had to say about his return, but also some of his comments about and the reporting on whether he would actually return this season. I thought he had some more interesting stuff to say beyond what we played earlier.
Sure, fitting into this team mid-season, if that does happen, like, is it going to have to be a bit of sacrifice for you? Like, how do you imagine it happening?
Yeah, I mean, it might look different. I haven't played with these guys or with this group, but a lot of high IQ guys out there, and I like to consider myself one of those type of players. So if that did present itself, and if I did come back, we professionals will figure it out.
Jason, what kind of things are you able to do? Like, are you going 5-on-5 full live right now? Like, where are you at and what you're actually doing on the court?
Yeah, that's just kind of part of the next progression. Being 39 weeks, that's kind of the stage that I'm at right now.
How was the practice with Made? I know you talked about it a little bit. Like, what did it feel like? How's it going? Like, how was it?
It was good. It was just kind of good to be out there. Had a jersey on. Just kind of felt good to be a part of a team and practice and go through reps and stuff like that.
Jason, what's it been like to watch this team play? You've been on the sideline just to hear everything but not be able to play. What's that mentally been like for you?
I mean, it's been tough not being able to play and compete. You know how much I love this game and love being out there. But I've also grown an appreciation for the game and for my teammates and just guys around the league. I just, been sitting back and being able to watch, guys kind of take their next step, and it's been kind of cool to see.
What are the next steps that you have to take?
Just, more conditioning, more live things, getting acclimated to, playing 5-on-5 and contact and stuff like that.
There was a report that you were reevaluating whether you would come back this year or not. Is that true? And where is your mindset on this year at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, still trying to figure it out. Still just going through the progressions of rehab. Not saying that I'm coming back or I'm not. It's all about being 100% healthy and, going through the plan of this protocol.
Muted. There's Tatum with his commentary today about his recovery. Again, glad to hear him talk about some of the reporting and some of the comments he made about the podcast. We were just going to keep spinning our wheels a little bit about what all that meant and where he was at mentally about a return here. And today, as we mentioned earlier, gave me a lot more confidence that he will be back this season. Now, when he was getting ready to talk today and when we got to the practice facility and the rumblings started circling that he was going to do a press conference today, you started to think in conjunction with the practice yesterday, like, could this be happening as soon as tomorrow? And he's obviously been ruled out of tomorrow's game against Chicago, but it does feel like this thing could be imminent, that it could happen pretty quickly after the All-Star break, just based on how the momentum's rolling right now. They'll give him a couple more weeks until they're back home again. I don't anticipate it'll be on that road trip through Golden State, LA, Phoenix, and Denver out of the break. But he'll be on that trip, and how much is he doing? Is he in the practice with the team? He'll probably do a little practice in LA with 2 days off between the Warriors and Lakers game. I can't wait to see how this is going to go. I know it's been annoying at times, tracking his every word and movement as he makes his return here, but it's got to also be fun for fans to think that on any day he could jump back into this lineup and give them the boost they need to be a legitimate East contender. But it still does feel like it's some ways off here based on how the team has described it. And of course, he remains out for the Bulls game tomorrow, the final game before the All-Star break. We will have coverage starting tomorrow morning at Bulls Shoot-Around, where Anthony Simons is going to appear back in the Garden, where he played for most of the season with the Bulls, where he started, scored 20 in 2 out of the 3 games he's played there. And we'll, of course, have post-game coverage, hear from him about a potential revenge game in Boston. It's a pretty thrown together lackluster Bulls team right now, so can't imagine they'll push the Celtics, but Simons is capable of catching fire at any moment, so excited to see him going against his old team. There's always motivation there, and we'll see what the Celtics can throw at him. And for now, I'm Bobby Manning. This has been Celtics Daily. Thanks for all the support with the new show here. Been really enjoying doing it live and pre-recorded on these off days when news breaks. We did a late one last night about Tatum doing that main Celtics practice, them coming down to Boston. I love that they have to come down to Boston for that. It's always so funny to me, the Porzingis thing last year too. And Porzingis, after he did that, was back in the lineup pretty quickly. I think within a week after that, and in a little different circumstances. He was coming back from, I believe, what was he coming back from? Ankle injury, maybe? I forget. Oh, the surgery, the off-season surgery on the ankle. Yep. And then he was back less than a week later. So similar scene here. Everyone loved the main jersey. I think they're selling out on the site or whatever at the moment. And I liked hearing from him today. It's always great to hear from these guys and hear their own words and ask them all the questions. And I think we asked him a lot of good stuff today and learned a lot about where he's at mentally and how he views this thing. But no movement on whether he's going to play this year or not. No indication of that this year. You can find the full comments on the CLNS Media channel right here. Just click below. Make sure you're subscribing there, and Celtics All Access for all the coverage of the team the rest of the way here. We will be out at All-Star Weekend starting on Thursday with coverage of the All-Star Game, where Jaylen Brown as well as Ron Harper Jr. are going to be participating in the festivities. Ron Harper's pairing with his brother and his father in the Shooting Stars competition, so that could be fun too. And we'll have all that coverage and more from LA starting this weekend. And thank you for joining us here tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with a Garden Report after Celtics Bulls, and then a break for a week, which we're excited about here. Thank you for all your support this season, all the coverage, and we're out of here. Have a good night. Peace.